If you have designs that you want to sell on print-on-demand products, but none of the online sales channels that you've looked at really seem like a good fit, you can kind of feel stuck. Maybe you don't love online marketplaces like Etsy and Amazon because of the fees they take and the rules and not knowing whether you're going to have things taken down for no reason. But you're also not really completely ready to build your own website using a platform like Shopify and pay that monthly fee just to get your products out there and then generate all of your own traffic. That can seem a little bit overwhelming at first as well. However, your business will never get off the ground if you don't get started, if you don't make a decision and start getting those products out there for people to see and start buying. So what option do you have that doesn't have a high cost, that lets you get started without all of the rules and complexities of those other online sales channels? In this video, we're going to talk about Printify Popup, a way to get a storefront with all of Printify's products available on your own separate website completely for free. All right, so before we talk about how to set up a Printify pop-up store, let's just talk about a few important points, and I will link to these pages down in the description of the video as well. Printify has a few pages here that help describe some information about the pop-up store option, and specifically, before we go any further, I just want to point out that currently, the pop-up store option is not available in several international countries outside of the US. It is available in the US. Right now, it is not available in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and several other European countries. So it does say they are working to expand this to the rest of the world, but for right now, as of the time I'm filming this in November 2023, it is not available in a lot of countries. Okay, so let's just talk about a few key things to be aware of. So first of all, a pop-up store does give you a custom URL. However, it is not going to be one that you can actually, we're going to talk a little bit about how you can still actually use a custom URL, a custom domain name with a Printify pop-up, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So as I mentioned, you won't be able to fully customize everything about the way your pop-up store looks. And we'll go through this and take a look at what it looks like. When it comes to customer service, the Printify pop-up store option actually handles everything for you. So your customers can get support directly from Printify if they have issues with an order. So if they get like a bad print or a broken mug or something like that, you actually don't need to get involved. They will be able to message Printify directly. And then most importantly, how do you get paid through a Printify pop-up store? This is perhaps the best part, I think, about using a pop-up store on Printify. Normally with print on demand, when you sell in another sales channel, the sales channel handles the money, right? If you sell on Etsy, Etsy handles the money. If you sell on Amazon, Amazon handles the money. And all of those sales channels have methods for sort of collecting your revenue and then paying it out to you. And that could be daily, weekly, monthly. They all have different, settings for how frequently they send you the revenue from your orders. But with a Printify pop-up store, Printify is actually handling the money. They're processing the payment from the customer and then fulfilling your orders automatically for you. So what that means is Printify can take the fulfillment cost out of your order revenue and leave you only with your profit, and you don't have to pay for anything upfront at all. So basically, this will end up working just like Redbubble or Amazon Merch on Demand, where you don't pay for anything yourself. You just receive whatever's left over, the profit from your items. And of course, you still set the pricing for your items, so your profit's going to be determined by that. You just don't have to pay for things up front before you actually get the revenue from your orders. And that's why I think this is pretty cool. Okay, so that's enough talking about it. Let's actually go through the process of opening a pop-up store. Now, if you already have a Printify account, you just basically add another store and select the pop-up option. If you're creating your account for the first time, it'll just be the first store that you select to create after you've opened your account. But if you already have a Printify account, then on the left navigation on your menu, just come over to the name of the store that you see displayed. Click on that and it will pop open this little menu here. And then all you need to do is click on the bottom where it says add a new store. And then it takes you to this page where you can select which sales channel you want. And now Printify Popup is the first choice here on the top of the list. So all we have to do is click on Launch Pop-Up Store. The first step is to enter our store name. Now I'm going to set up a pop-up store, kind of like a POD Insights merch store. So that's what I'm going to go with. We're going to call this POD Insights merch. Of course, you want to use whatever your name for your business is going to be. So, okay, so I'm going to check the box here to confirm I'm a US resident and I accept the terms of service. And now we can click on create a pop-up store. Okay, we have a few themes to choose from here. This is something that I would guess over time, Printify may expand a little bit to offer more. I'm going to go ahead and select this darker color theme. I kind of like that for POD Insights. My theme is kind of like a black and yellow color. So I'm going to go with this one here, but of course pick any theme that you like and then click on Launch Pop-Up Store. So the little pop-up gives you the option to start adding products or see my store. I'm going to click on see my store here just to get a look at the landing page. So here's what the landing page looks like. It's got the dark theme that we selected, and here's my store name. So we can customize this logo. We'll take a look at that in just a second. And that's it. It's pretty basic landing page. So let's go back to Printify and we'll actually start going through a little bit more. We'll add a couple products here. But before we do that, let's take a look at the store settings because that's where we need to go to set up our payout information as well as our other branding for the store landing page. So on the left navigation, let's go over to store settings. Here you'll find a few different tabs here across the top. And the first one, we're going to scroll down under the general settings and we're going to upload our shop logo. Now this is something you definitely want to have a store logo for, just like you would if you were creating an Etsy shop or your own website. So use whatever tool you like. I like to create logos and shop images on Canva because it's super easy, but use whatever tool you like. All right, so there's my POD Insights logo. Now I'm going to scroll down here under social media, and the default is to show Instagram and YouTube. There's a few others you can actually select to add here as well. So I'm just going to go get the links to my YouTube channel and my Instagram account and paste them in the settings here. And then at the bottom right corner, make sure you click save if you've made any changes to save those changes. Now let's actually just go back and refresh our store page here to make sure that that worked and see what it looks like. So there we go. My logo is updated next to my store name in the top right corner, and in the bottom, the social links are kind of small, but they're down here in the corner underneath your store name. All right, now let's hop over onto this payouts page because this is where we're going to set the information in order to not get income tax taken out of our earnings and also set up our PayPal account so we can receive our earnings. So of course you need to fill in your address here if it doesn't pre-populate with what you use to create your account. And then the tax identity information here, you've got to put your full name, your tax classification, which would be individual, assuming you don't have an LLC or anything like that. For a pop-up, I'm guessing you're probably just going to do individual there. And then you do need to put in your tax ID number, which is your social security number if you're in the United States and you are an individual. And then in order to not have any tax withheld from your earnings, you would need to click this button. There's a pop-up where all you have to do is fill out a few more fields to file a W-9 form. So it's up to you as to whether you would like Printify to withhold 24% or submit the W-9 and just get all of it and then worry about handling the taxes yourself. And then at the bottom of the page here, this is your PayPal email address. You have to enter it twice, so just make sure you get that entered and saved. They do pay out on the 14th of every month. You can't change that to daily or weekly. However, that's not that big of a deal in my opinion because remember, this is going to work just like Redbubble or Amazon merch. You're not paying for anything up front. They're just sending you your earnings once a month based on the profits, whatever's left over after orders are fulfilled. You're not actually spending anything throughout the month. So to me, not that huge of a deal that you only get this monthly. All right, then on the marketing tab, this is where you can enter your Google Analytics ID as well as your Facebook Pixel ID if you have one. So if you do sign up for Google Analytics and get an ID, that'll give you some more advanced tracking and information about the traffic that's coming to your page. Now, the ship from address setting is exactly the same as with any other sales channel on Printify. This is just asking, how do you want the return address on your shipping labels to look? And if you click in the right top corner here where it says see label example, it'll kind of give you the example. So it puts your store name at the top. And then if you don't enter a specific address, this will just be blank. But what they will do is they will use the address of the print provider who printed your order so that in case the customer does send it back, or if the carrier actually does like a return to sender, it'll go back to the print provider instead of to you. Now, I would not recommend using a custom address unless you have a specific address that you use for your business. So if you put in like your personal home address, That means your personal home address is going out on every shipping label to all your customers. I don't personally think that's a great idea. But if you got a P.O. box or another address that you're set up to receive packages for your business, then you can use that as the return address on all your shipping labels. Okay, then we have an order settings tab here, and we have a branding tab. So those are the last two settings. So for order settings, we have first the order routing setting. Now this is an option you can enable by checking this box, and if you do, it will automatically route your orders to the best print provider according to Printify. So basically the best price, the best production speeds, and the best quality ranking, because they have quality rankings for their print providers. And you have a couple settings that you can control here. So you have a maximum additional cost per item, and then you have an allowance for routing to exact product matches or similar. The price difference category here has a minimum of $2. And basically what you're doing here is you're saying, if my normal print provider is not going to be used, I am only willing to pay up to $2 more than my usual cost. And I personally wouldn't recommend setting this higher than $2 or $3 because you don't want to suddenly get an order fulfilled where the cost was $10 higher than you expected it, so you didn't make any money. And I also recommend changing this setting to exact product matches only. And really that has to do with mostly apparel. So let's say that the t-shirt that you selected when you created your product is not available, it's out of stock, and they need to route your order to another print provider. But if you don't have exact product matches selected, they could route it to a print provider who has an equivalent product. It's close enough, basically. It could be another brand, which means the sizing might be slightly different because we all know apparel sizes aren't super consistent from one brand to the next. So I personally like to select exact matches only. I only want my orders routed to another print provider if they have the exact same product. Okay, and then the second setting on this page is order approval. This basically just tells Printify what do you want to happen to your orders when they come in. If you select manual, it means you will have to go to your orders page in Printify and manually submit every single order that you get. And then you also have options for automatic based on timing. So you have automatic in 1 hour, automatic in 24 hours, and automatic at a certain time of day each day. All right, for tracking notifications, it's important to point out this only applies to manual and sample orders. So there is a tracking notification that goes to your customers with a Printify Popup store via email. However, these settings don't control that. These settings are only applying if you submit a manual order or if you submit a sample order. So it's basically for you. It is, do you want to receive tracking notifications for these types of orders? And you can say that you don't want them at all. You want them to come as a batch, or you want them to come immediately as soon as things are shipped. Last two options here, you have delayed orders and you have daily order updates. Delayed orders, basically just if Printify ever identifies that there's going to be a significant shipping delay for one of your orders, if you set this to manual, then an order that fits that criteria would not go to production automatically, and you would get a notification saying, hey, look at this order and decide if you want to submit it or if you want to ask the customer if they want to cancel it or something. Or you can select automatic and just have all of your orders get submitted even if Printify identifies that it could be delayed. And then your last option is whether you want to receive daily email updates that just provide you with a summary of the orders that you've received. Totally up to you. And when you're done, of course, don't forget to click on save. The last tab here in our store setup is the branding tab, and this is where we can set up custom packaging inserts. These are 100% designable, meaning if you click on start designing here, you can design this whole thing. It's basically a blank card. It's like on cardstock and they put it in your order packaging for your customer. You can design the entire thing. So this is a great opportunity if you're willing to pay that little extra cost per order to have a nice branded thank you message, because you don't really have the same email list capabilities with Printify Popup. This is a decent opportunity to get some of that branding and have the customer take a little action on social media if they like their order. All right, and that is it. That's all of the settings. So now we can go ahead and actually create a couple of products to put out there, and we can talk about a couple other important things with your pop-up store. All right, so I'm just going to add this t-shirt to my shop. And one thing I want to point out before we finish adding a listing here is if we take a look at the preview page, it's important to point out if you are planning on using any of your own mockups, you cannot do that with Printify Popup. So you can only use Printify's built-in mockups. However, like I have here, you can add your own background. I actually have a whole separate video I made about adding backgrounds to your mockups on Printify. I will link to that in the corner and in the description if you want more info about how to make these backgrounds for your mockups. And you can do them for your lay flat mockups like this, as well as the mockups that have a person in them, just like this one. I've added this background of a kind of a living room scene. And then when it comes to the listing process, it's very similar to creating listings on Printify and any other sales channel. Just a couple things I want to point out. Number one, you can add a size chart in the description, which you cannot do on Etsy. So that's nice. You can actually get your size chart right there in the description. When it comes to your pricing, this is something I want to make sure I point out. There are no seller fees on Printify Popup. So if you're used to the sort of the concept of selling on other platforms like Etsy, Amazon, or even Shopify, then normally you have to factor in the fees you're going to get charged. Basically, they're going to take a cut out of your order. So when we set our prices here, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, what I just said about not having any fees taken out. So the amount that we're going to get as profit is actually going to be more per item and per order because we're not losing any of it to those fees. And I also want to point out that on a Printify pop-up store, the shipping is paid by the customer. So they do charge the shipping. There is no currently, at least, there's no controlling your customer's shipping costs. So you can't do free shipping for the customer and then inflate your product prices. Whatever the shipping cost is what Printify is going to charge the customer. So your profit really is just controlled by your retail price and the production cost. So for example, I just set this t-shirt price for small to XL to $19.99. The production cost for those sizes is $8.48. So it's telling me that's a profit of $11.51. And that is because the customer is also going to pay $4.75 for shipping. So for example, if I wanted to take my profit margin down to 50%, be a little more competitive on my pricing, I can drop this to $16.99 for these sizes. That'll get me $8.51 profit per item, per order. All right, so there we go. I've got my pricing set up and that's really it. There is no shipping profile option on this one only because I used Printify Choice to create this, which again, I have a whole separate video about what Printify Choice is. Basically, it just means they're going to automatically select the best print provider based on location and product availability for each individual order. Then I can click on publish and I'll get this listing published. All right, now I've also added a mug with my logo to my shop as well. So let's go take a look at my shop and see what it looks like now. There we go. Now I've got two products in my shop and I wanted to add two different products here to show you kind of how Printify arranges your shop. You don't have control over the navigation, but what they do is they automatically add shop sections based on the products that you've added. So you can see across the top here, my navigation is all products, home and living, which now has a mug in there. And then under women's and men's, you'll see the t-shirt because this is a unisex t-shirt. So they automatically do this. You don't have control over this shop navigation. But each page does have a specific product listing like this. Each page has its own URL. So on social media, on a Facebook post or something like that, if you wanted to link to an individual product, you do have a URL at the top here specific to each product page. But here's an example of what your product listing looks like. So all your mockups are here. Your primary image is here. You have your pricing over here, and notice it does indicate, the shipping price right now is $6.29. That's the shipping cost. So Printify is just automatically going to charge that. You've got your description about the product. Printify also automatically includes the features of the product from their catalog and the care instructions. And then that is it. That's basically how your listings look. All right, let's talk about a couple other quick things here and then we'll wrap this video up. So if you want to do this and have this as your storefront to sell your designs and then just promote your products, on social media so that you're not paying a service like Shopify, how can you still get a nice custom URL? Because if you look at our URL right now, this is, nobody's going to remember this, right? I would always have to be linking people to this. Otherwise, no one's going to remember pod-insights-merch.printify.me. No one's going to remember that or type that in manually. So how can I get an easy to remember URL for my store if I'm doing this Printify pop-up where I don't have as much control? Well, it's actually super easy to do just by buying your own domain name and then redirecting that domain to the URL of your pop-up store. So for example, I like to use Hostinger for a couple different things. If you ever plan on having a WordPress site where you need hosting for it, Hostinger is great for that. They have very affordable hosting, but they also sell domain names and they have some of the lowest rates, especially for the first year on domain names. And what I would recommend doing is looking for .store or .shop. So for example, if I search for .store, you can see podinsights.store is 99 cents for the first year. And you can always scroll down and see more options as well for different domains, .org, .tech, .pro, all of those things. One thing to keep in mind is if you look at the not discounted price, for example, it's showing here that $51.99 is the annual price for PODinsights.store, and it's discounted to 99 cents for the first year, so that's great, but that means every year after that it would cost $51.99 per year. So I would recommend kind of scrolling through, looking through your options, try and find one that the regular not discounted price is not really expensive, because that's what you're going to pay in subsequent years. So the one that I actually bought for this merch shop is PODinsights.shop. That's another one that usually is pretty cheap. I only paid 99 cents for the first year on this one. No matter where you bought your domain name from, you'll be able to go and set the forward information. This is what it looks like on Hostinger. I would just come to my account page, click on manage for this particular domain, get to this page, and then scroll down to where it says forward your domain to an existing website. Like I said, no matter what service you use to buy your domain, they're all going to have a way to do this. All you have to do is look for an option that says forward domain or domain forwarding. So I'm going to click on forward domain here, and then all I have to do is get the URL for my Printify Popup store. We'll bring that over here and we'll paste in this URL, and then we will click on create. On Hostinger, they give you a little pop-up letting you know this could take a couple hours in order to actually take effect. All I have to do is click on confirm here, and there we go. Now you can still, if you want to use this URL for your own site later, if you want to reuse it somewhere else, you can change this. You can come back, you can remove the forwarding, you can change the forwarding. And so that's why I think creating your own domain name for your shop is a great idea, because you can take it with you. If you're using this domain, now what I do is on social media, I link people to PODinsights.shop. That domain is going to redirect to my POD Insights merch store instead of having to give out this one. So now in the future, if I bring my store somewhere else, if I go with Shopify website, if I go with a WordPress website with a store, I can keep directing people to the same URL and just change where that URL goes. And just to test that out here, I'm going to open up a new tab and we're going to put in PODinsights.shop. We'll hit enter. And there we go. It's redirected me to my page. Now the URL does change in your URL address bar up here once the redirect is completed. But the key was just that using that address, PODinsights.shop, got me here. So now that will be a lot easier for people to remember if I post it on social media, and maybe somebody can actually find my shop. All right, so that's it for this video. Let me know what you think of this option for selling online down in the comments. The only possible fees that you could incur here are if you go for a Printify Premium account, and that just lowers your product pricing. So it actually adds to your bottom line, gets you higher profits, but you absolutely don't need to do that. You don't need to use Printify Premium. You can sign up for a free account and then create your totally free pop-up store, not get charged any seller fees. So this is a pretty cool option. I think it's a great option for somebody who's starting out with print on demand. Now you don't have the full control over everything that you're going to have if you build your own website, like what to do with shipping strategy, creating different types of mock-ups. So you don't quite have that same level of control, but if you're trying to get started for as little investment as possible, I think this is a pretty cool option. Let me know what you think down in the comments though, and let me know if you have any questions about it. I hope you found it helpful. Do me a favor and hit that like button if it was helpful for you. And don't forget to subscribe to the POD Insights channel if you haven't. Thanks everybody. See you next time.